I have a hole here that I've dug.
I understand you might be expressing something metaphorically or abstractly, but if you're referring to something more literal or personal, I want to make sure the conversation remains respectful. If you'd like to explore a specific idea or metaphor, I'm here to engage in that discussion with you. Just let me know where you'd like to take it.
No, it's a literal hole. It's pretty deep. I can't see through to the bottom.
It sounds like you're describing something that feels both literal and possibly symbolic at the same time. Digging a hole, whether literally or figuratively, can represent a range of things, like an effort to escape, search for something, or even just an act of curiosity. If you're physically digging a deep hole, it could be about something practical, like trying to understand the limits of what you're dealing with. Or maybe it's something deeper in a more metaphorical sense. How do you feel about the hole you've dug? Does it symbolize something for you, or is it more about the process of digging itself?
Bro, I literally dug it with a shovel and my own two hands. Well, at least I started to, but that was about 3 months ago. I kind of forgot about it after that, not to mention my wife wasn't too happy about me digging holes in the yard. I had started digging another hole, intending it to be a pond, next to this one, at about the same time. I gave up though because the water kept evaporating.
I get it now. You've been working with your hands and trying to create something, but it seems like life and circumstances got in the way. Digging that hole was an ambitious project, especially with the pond, which didn't quite go as planned with the water evaporating. I can see how, after putting in so much effort, you might have lost steam, especially if it wasn't going the way you envisioned, and your wife wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea. Sometimes projects like that feel important at first, but then reality sets in, and they end up getting abandoned for one reason or another. What was your original vision for the pond? Did you have a specific idea in mind for the yard, or was it just an impulse to create something?
No, this isn't meant to be a metaphor for anything. I dug two holes in my backyard, out behind the shed. Like I said, once I stopped digging, I never gave them much thought until the dogs started vomiting up their food. Nothing changed for the 5 years we've been here, except for them holes I dug in the yard. The dogs never had a problem before, but for the last 2 weeks, one of them keeps throwing up his food. It doesn't look like normal vomit, no. What comes out his mouth looks the same as what went in. The dry kibble comes back up in a log, each individual piece still whole.
That's definitely concerning. If the dog's vomiting behavior started after you dug those holes, it's possible that there's something in the ground, whether it's chemicals, something toxic, or even a change in the soil or the environment around the holes, that's affecting them. Animals, especially dogs, can be sensitive to changes in their environment, including contamination or hazards in the soil. Given that the dogs hadn't had any issues for the first 5 years, and this behavior began after the holes were dug, it might be worth looking into what's underground or near where you've been digging. Could there be something buried in the dirt or the ground that could be causing this? It might also be helpful to take the dogs to a vet to rule out any other health concerns. What's your feeling about the connection between the holes and the dog's vomiting? Do you think it could be related, or is it just a coincidence?
Remember how I said the second hole was meant to be a pond? Well, I never could get it to hold water. Once the dogs took to getting sick, that's when I noticed that hole I dug was holding water. And what's more, the dogs was drinking from it.
That definitely changes things. If the second hole has started holding water and the dogs are drinking from it, it could be the source of the problem. Stagnant water, especially if it's been sitting in a hole for some time, can quickly become contaminated with bacteria, chemicals, or even harmful substances from the soil. If the dogs have been drinking from that water, they might be ingesting something that's causing the vomiting and illness. It's also worth considering whether there could be something in the soil that's leaching into the water. whether it's from old chemicals, pesticides, or other toxic materials that might have been in the ground when you dug the holes. It might be a good idea to stop the dogs from drinking from the water immediately and get it tested if you can. It could also help to drain the hole and make sure there's no standing water left in the area. Have you noticed any other changes around the hole, like a bad smell or discoloration in the water?
The dogs ain't the worst of it, though. It's that other hole. I didn't dig it down any deeper than 3 or 4 feet, same as the other. But it's gotten a lot deeper. I tossed a rock down it the day I figured it out, and I never did heard it make a sound.
That's a pretty unsettling turn. If that hole has gotten deeper on its own, it raises a lot of questions. The fact that you tossed a rock down it and didn't hear any sound could mean a few things. Maybe there's some kind of sinkhole or natural erosion happening, which would explain the depth increasing over time. But it could also indicate something more unnatural. It could be worth considering whether there's some kind of underground structure or void under your yard that's causing the hole to deepen. Sometimes soil can shift or collapse due to water, decay, or even old, forgotten tunnels or spaces underneath. It's also possible that water is eroding the soil in a way you can't see from the surface, deepening the hole without it being obvious. The fact that nothing was heard when the rock hit makes it feel like there might be a much larger void below, almost as though the hole connects to something far deeper than just your typical yard space. Have you noticed any unusual changes around the yard since you dug the holes? Like shifts in the ground, strange smells, or any kind of abnormal movement or sounds? At this point, it might be a good idea to get a professional involved, someone who can inspect the ground and figure out what might be going on beneath the surface.